Welcome, everybody, to the Power Half Hour. And I have a friend and a guest in the studio with me today. My name is Lynn Wenger. I'm the host of the Compliance Power Half Hour by the Compliance Alliance. And with me today is Dr. Teri DeLucca with Impact Early Education. Hello, Teri.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Lynn. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Well, this is a topic we're going to get into it in just a moment, but it's one where when we talk about compliance, a piece of that is around getting their training hours, getting their professional development. And what I'm excited about for this segment is you're really going to kind of expand our thinking to go beyond checking the boxes to get the requirements done and really thinking about this as far as how coaching can be a catalyst to implementing compliance, thinking beyond just checking the boxes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And before we get into the first set of questions here, for those that don't already know you, the notes are going to have your bio, but tell us briefly, what is Impact Early Education?
Sure. Impact Early Education is a professional development company, and we offer so many different services. So we have on-demand courses that are very unique and different than anything that's out there. My dream was and my why of starting this business was really just to disrupt how our industry does training so that
Mm.
we make these so that they're really engaging and fun and high quality, no boring PowerPoints, they're masterclass style. We have a podcast section so we can really take the strategies we're teaching and bring it into the real world. We've all got the science background, but we've also operated schools. We've been teachers in classrooms. So we know that there's a disconnect in a lot of trainings, and we try to bridge that gap. So we have on-demand trainings, live in-person events. We do virtual master classes. We tap in through cameras and do behavior observations for those really problematic classrooms that can pop up here and there. And then we have an AI platform launching soon to help with some behavior coaching and director coaching.
Wow. It is quite comprehensive. And we have clients at the Compliance Alliance that have utilized your catalog of services. And we'll talk a little bit more about that toward the end, but it really is picking the point where it's the most value to the school. So it's knowing where you are. But let's zoom right in on that piece. When you and I've talked in the past, we talk about professional development really should be an integral part of operations. We don't always think of it as a strategic element, but rather than we got to get this done, share
Yes.
with us that shift in mindset and how you view it, how directors and owners can really look at this as a strategic part of operations.
Sure. Well, I have to say first, why I was just so excited and honored that you asked, to talk with me about this is I view professional development as such a key pillar to compliance. The way that it's almost like your pathway, your bridge to compliance. And so what we see often, and I can say honestly, where my centers were when I was operating centers is it was just that. It was, oh no, we have to check this box for and making professional development and training a part of your daily operations. And it just becomes a part of your culture of how you function. And the really important aspect to that is finding training that your team actually enjoys because it's effective. When it works and it's not just head knowledge, and it's like, okay, great, now I know more about this, but what do I do with that when a child is melting down on the floor? That does not help me. That head knowledge does not help me. Or there's oftentimes trainings that it's like, well, that would be great if we had a classroom of 5 perfect children who were all developmentally on track and the teacher had a master's degree and all this professionalism, but that's not our life. So when you can find training that works for your team, that's engaging and fun and not boring, and it's effective and it's giving real world strategies that work, and you make that just part of how you operate. And what I mean by that is it starts with onboarding. So when you're onboarding a new teacher and you set the standard there for this is our belief. We fully value your personal growth. We want to grow you as a person and we want to grow you as a teacher. So you will be required to do these trainings, whatever the frequency is, whether it's monthly or some do every 2 weeks even. You will get ongoing impromptu feedback. That's going to happen. You will have one-on-one meetings, and every meeting, even if you're our top rock star teacher, you are going to be challenged to grow. And so when you set that as the basis and they just know, okay, this is what's expected, it's not as like defenses don't jump up when it's, hey, let me talk about what I saw. Let's see how we can problem solve this together. Let me be your thinking partner on this part. It changes everything because now your whole center is operating from the same standards, you're using the same strategies, and it really starts to shift culture because it makes things easier. You don't have as many behaviors, and you can get the classroom management right. And not, I don't mean behavior, I mean the things that are happening in the classroom. When you have compliance right, when you have the right thinking, confidence, and how you're going to deal with stress and chaos, when you have all of that in place, a lot of these challenging behaviors start to fall off. So it can really become just how you operate, how you think, and you start to see it's like this trifecta. You just see culture change, you see teachers stay, the loyalty grows, the classroom, the kids are like soaring off the charts at that point. So it doesn't have, that's what my whole mission and goal, I light up with this because it doesn't have to be just this, oh, another training. It can really transform everything.
That is, when you said the trifecta, it's so funny you should say that because at the Compliance Alliance, we talk about the trifecta of compliance, having standard operating procedures, having checklists, doing audits. And if you're training on that, like you said, it's that we're here to support your growth. That's part of the growth, that's part of the culture. And
Yes.
as you were talking, I want to kind of bust a myth here.
Sure. I love myth busting.
Myth
Let's do it. Yes.
And we didn't talk about this before, so this is live TV. And because I think it's something that's on the mind of our listeners, which is I don't have the time or I don't have the money.
Right.
Everyone talks about time and money being a commodity that there's not enough
Absolutely.
of. And yet
And
it's a requirement. So talk about that. Bust that myth when somebody says, I don't have the time or I don't have the money.
right. We hear that all the time. And I can say that that is you, I'm going to flip it on that. You can not afford not to do this.
Right.
It's, you really can't afford not to invest in your staff. So we know from research, really modern, like I'm talking this year, studies that have been done on early education teachers, when you ask them, and a lot of these are younger teachers too, what do they want? What are they looking for? What makes a difference in their staying, you know, after the hard days, their loyalty to stay with that company. So much of it comes back to personal growth. They want to feel invested in, they want to feel valued, not just growing their job skills, but who they are as a person. And so when you're choosing, I say the right training, it doesn't have to be an outside agency. It can be you as the leader developing your own training. So whatever you choose to go with, you've got to choose the right way and the right strategies to do it. And then it all starts to fall in line. But if you make wise decisions on your selection of training that is affordable, but then time blocking. And so it doesn't have to be this huge cumbersome thing. It really doesn't. If you're going to create your own trainings, we have AI now that can help people create their trainings. If you don't want that off your plate, we would love to help you. We've got an amazing library created already that's very affordable, but it's worth taking that investment. And also when you're looking at how much of your budget you're going to put towards professional development, you really should be paying for this for your staff. A lot of people don't, they'll deduct it out of the paychecks. That does not, it's not an effective. If you really want to pour into them and build them up, that's not how you keep them. They work too hard for too low of pay to then have to do that. So I would say invest the money in paying them for the training and then invest it in your scheduling so that when you're scheduling and making that master schedule, they're able to have some time while they're on the clock to do the training. They're more likely to then be invested in what they're viewing or our trainings are multisensory, just like kids learn. We know that you learn best through more than one pathway. So yes, they're watching an on-demand course, but they're also writing. We have a whole component that goes with it. So whatever you do, just invest your money wisely, but then also time. So it's just being careful that if you're going to put this whole investment of money into it, don't waste it by not talking about this in your staff meetings. So it's really important to make a tiny 8 minutes. That's what I tell everyone. You can choose 8 minutes of your staff meeting to go over, here's what we all did our training on this month. Let's talk what worked, what didn't work. What'd you have success with? What was hard for you? Because yeah, you're talking about the training, but you're also team building. You're building that collegiality. You're building those relationships. So you really can't afford not to do it when you think about it big picture.
Well, you popped that myth. It really does boil down to that. And something that I've seen be effective is creating a matrix. Something
Mhm.
as practical as your matrix of what's our focus or our theme going to be, just like you do with your curriculum. What's our theme
Right.
going to be around professional development? And creating a matrix of the type of training that you're going to participate in. Is it pre-recorded? Is it in person? Are you going to do a little mini retreat? Those schools that I see that have created a matrix and kind of map that out, it's time consuming, but it is a little bit of a rinse repeat once you've put it in place. Is that something you help schools put together?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say we have something we call it our ultimate professional development team planner, and so it just helps for the whole year. So definitely, I know we hadn't talked about that, but I could somehow get that to you to get out to people if you're interested.
Let's do
So we have that now, and I mentioned we have an AI product launching soon, and that will be a piece that's covered. So it will help highlight. It helps teachers with behavior and all kinds of things, but on the director side, it also shows which staff need the most help, and it'll help you organize who you need to have those conversations with, top like in the red priority. And then it guides you on what to say, how to say that, and then how to manage that time. So that would be a resource when it's launched very soon, actually.
Okay. Well, there's the AI piece of it. There's the matrix. I think that would be a great takeaway that we'll make sure to include with this recording when
Sure.
it goes live. Another part of this that we were going to talk about is coaching. Okay.
Yes.
So when we talk about compliance and how this intersects with your world, a lot of times there's this attitude of it's punitive. Sometimes when we think of compliance, we think of it as either I'm following the rules or if I'm not. If I'm not following the rules, the consequence, there's going to be a negative consequence. We've been working really hard to shift that mindset, which is the whole reason why you're doing audits and the whole reason why you're doing training is recognizing we're imperfect people. There are things that we need to improve. And part of what happens with compliance is based on the children that are in your care at that point in time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's all the same all the time, day in and day out. So let's talk about the coaching piece of it. Where and how does that fit in?
Sure. Well, first, I want to give a little grace to everyone listening who's tried to coach your team unsuccessfully, because I know that was me when I was operating schools. I would have my directors, okay, here's your coaching schedule. You just need a time block and be intentional. And this is how many you're going to go in, and you're going to do observations, and then you're going to have these conversations. And I mean, that was way back before we had some of the technology we have today. But regardless, what can happen in schools, and we see this across the board, is it's those teachers who are most in need, who have struggles, the chaotic classroom, whatever, they pop up as that's who needs the coaching. And then if you go in, and if you go in unequipped as the leader or whoever it is that's having this conversation, it usually can get derailed pretty quickly. Emotions can pop in, or we can be a little confrontational avoidant. And it's like, I know there's this issue, but this person's really got a lot on her plate. She's been here forever. I don't want to lose her. We have PTSD about people walking out on us
That's
collectively as an industry. So it's like, I don't want to lose her. She's got all this stuff going on in her personal life. I'm just going to give it some time. I'm going to make some notes. I'm going to watch it, and I'll talk and address this in like 3 weeks. That's a very common mindset we see. However, when we can push past the uncomfortableness and really grow yourself or whoever will be doing the coaching so that you're equipped with these skills and strategies to have conversations in the right way that don't cause the defenses, because you can feel ashamed if someone's saying they're
yeah.
pointing out something you're not doing right, especially if you think about a teacher working so hard, exhausted for 40 hours a week, and the majority of those hours are doing everything right. maybe 4 or 5 things didn't go great. And then that's what's being pinpointed. It doesn't feel good. It's like a complete culture tank. So whenever you can combine, if you don't include, I'm just warning, if you do not include coaching as a key piece of your professional development plan, it just simply won't be effective because there's two things happening when you're taking all these courses as a school. Maybe you're doing on demand, maybe you're watching live in person, maybe you can have someone come in and do a group training, which is always amazing and everyone gets pumped up. And then you get back in the day-to-day,
Right.
you can lose it. And so what those are great. We need that piece because it's establishing the foundation. All of that is happening. However, coaching, you can really use that for so many things. You're able to pinpoint in what specifically that person needs some strengths in, but you can also celebrate all the greatness that's happening. And so we have a really good, I keep thinking of all these things we have. I can send this out too. We have a really great, it's your ideal one-on-one meeting template of what we use. And it's just how you can do a great one-on-one within 15 to 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be this 30-minute, hour-long thing. You can do it very quickly, but being able to see something when you pop your head in the room, shadow of the leader is a big deal. So that just means your school will take on how you are. If you sit in your office and
That's
you
right.
don't get up and walk around and pop your head in the classrooms, that's going to affect culture. It's going to affect loyalty, all of those things. So if you can get up, just pop your head in and talk to everyone. Maybe you time block an hour. That's all it is, over 2 weeks, even if you need to. But when you pop your head in and you see something that's a little off, or it didn't fit right with you, or it's just a little more chaotic than you would like, or whatever it is, you've got to say something. Not then, they're in the crisis moment, but later, just as they're clocking out, or pull them in real quick. I just want to talk real quick. But when you armor up, I really say you're like armoring up as if you're going into battle to equip
Oh,
yourself.
you can just see it, and the body language is like,
I'm
oh,
like,
there she comes, or he
yes,
comes. Like you just,
there's yes, and it's truly an art of how to have these conversations, but it's not impossible. It's just that we were not taught in school. Most of us were not taught communication skills and how to connect well with others. So as the leader, when we can equip ourselves with body language, tone, pace, what words to say, what not to say, how to go in and give that feedback, you are then not only celebrating all the things they're doing well, you're not telling them punitively, don't do this. Well, it's not that. It's you're coming in as a thinking partner of, hey, here's the situation. How can you and I together get to the other side of that? And you're going to guide them in getting there. You beep some stuff, but it's them deciding to make that. And that makes all the difference. So when you can really piggyback that coaching and impromptu feedback piece along with a regular professional development plan, you're building your connection with them, you're building that trust and loyalty. And what you'll see is the more deep you get in this, they want to do what you're asking. They really do. It's a beautiful phenomenon. It's like watching them just completely open up. They want to meet you and meet those expectations that you've set.
I
So,
love that because that
so
is very,
important.
they want to meet and exceed when they feel valued and heard. And, it's a well-known saying, people don't always remember what you said, but it's how
Yeah.
you make them feel. And
And,
we are a feeling business, so you
oh
can be
yeah.
a thinking partner. Um, I also, you made me think of something else, which is, again, tying it back to the world of compliance. When we think about having standard operating procedures, it's the way to be very objective as opposed to subjective. When
Absolutely.
you're saying, here's what the expectation is, and here's where, I mean, you would say it way better because this is your field of work. But if there's a gap that's there, you're not being subjective. It's not how you, Terry, did it. It's this is our process, this is our procedure. When I saw this, I observed this. How might we together improve on that to get closer to what the standard is? That's a totally different thing than somebody coming around with a clipboard and a checklist like do 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 and
Absolutely.
that armored up, you know,
Yeah.
uh, persona that enters a room. It shifts everything. And
Yes.
it's subtle what you're saying, but it is achievable. It's very achievable.
And you made me think of something. There's 2 points that came to mind when you said that. So the first is our philosophy, not everyone may agree with this, but our philosophy at Impact Early Education is we approach training like twofold. The first priority before we ever get to teaching skills is growing them as a person. It's growing the teacher's personal leadership and personal accountability. And it's how they think, not just about children and the parents, but their coworkers, because we can have a lot of, I say when that drama train starts chugging, it's hard to stop it. It's people working with people. There's personality conflicts. And so it's teaching that part first. And then you come in with all, okay, here's the classroom management, behavior management. Here's how we reach these child development domain goals we have. But with that, I always encourage, as part of standard operating procedures, and I think this would also help with compliance, is all of our plans, we want them to have your standards of behavior. It's a little different than your core values and the things you hear about, but standards of behavior for personal leadership. So that's just, they're signing on a dotted line. When you start working with us, here's how we lead ourselves. Here's how we approach situations that you may find yourself in with coworkers, with leadership. When there's a conversation that needs to be had, we call it a courageous conversation. When you have that moment, here's how we expect you to handle yourself. And you're held accountable for this. And so it's how you deal with life and the professionalism piece of it that can get kind of wonky when stuff gets challenging and hard and stressful. Then when you're having those conversations you're mentioning, this is our standard of behavior. Here's part of our operating practice. And you train and coach and teach them these skills. You teach them these thinking strategies. But it's amazing because it doesn't just level them up as who they are for you as a teacher. It changes who they are at their core and their personal life. So I tell everyone, I'm like, if you trust me on this, they're going to become better at home. They're better parents, better in their relationships. They're better out at the grocery store when they have someone who seems incompetent and they're frustrated. You just become better. And so that's the first thing that came to mind. The second thing is knowing the difference. It's skills versus attributes. And so when you're coaching someone, I hear this a lot. We have this when I'm speaking, people will often ask the question of, okay, well, what if I've coached and I've given feedback and it goes great, but they don't make changes and they don't change. They're still just like, okay, yeah, whatever. And they have this laissez-faire attitude about it. Well, skills are the teaching skills, classroom management, all of those things. We can teach those things. We can work, maybe they're not where they need to be, but we can teach and guide and coach and move the needle. Attributes are more of your personal qualities of who you are, your work ethic. Are you late and tardy a lot? Are you going to keep trying with someone whenever they really bother you or tick you off and there's a personality conflict? Are you going to fly off the handle and lose your cool? It's those types of things. So when you do have a situation come up with someone and they're not responding to the coaching and feedback and meeting your expectations, it's knowing when to release them to the world and say, we tried, and go through we also have steps to fire with compassion. We also have that we could send, but when to have that conversation versus not, because it can start to affect your compliance. When you keep someone who's not going to level up and meet you where you're wanting to get them with the professional development, the coaching, and they're choosing to stay here, that can turn into a safety issue. It can turn into them getting passive aggressive with a coworker or calling and reporting your school. So it really takes a keen eye on that whole skill versus attribute gap that can creep in with someone.
I'm so glad you made that distinction. And then you called it a code of behavior, or what was it that you called that?
We call it standards of behavior. I mean, you could really call it however you want, but it's things like, for us in my centers I operated, it was being curious versus judgmental, having courageous conversations, looking in the mirror first. Like, what is my role before you then go spew on everyone else? It's leveraging separate realities. And so I actually got all of this information. We've done some amazing collaborative work with Mark Sasser, who wrote a book called Accountability Now. We have a whole 5-part course series on this with him that we developed. But I was exposed to this work when I was working, not even in this industry, as a research scientist for a child health organization. And we were forced to do this. And it was our standards of behavior in that organization that we had to operate by. And it changed our culture. It went from a toxic culture to an amazing, I watched the culture shift. And so when I started taking over the schools and operating this, we were a multi-site operation and the owners were ready to retire. And so I stepped in and was their VP of operations, and I was just blown away. It's like, whoa, what is going on here? We have everyone's mad at everyone. They're operating like they're on little islands. Like, we got to fix this. And I was like, I cannot believe this. As annoyed as I was by some of those meetings I had to sit in on standards of behavior, I can't believe that was, believe it or not, I think that was really the start of impact early education way back then. That's when that little fire lit up in me was, I'm going to write my own training for this. I'm not going to go find something. I'm going to create a training. And I called it, why can't we all just get along? And then it was great. It changed everything. And then I made that our standards of behavior. And that's how, when you entered our organization, they went through, here's how we're going to handle the life stuff. When life starts to life, here's how we expect you to handle that. And they really, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to have a hard conversation with someone, but you're giving them these tools that makes them better at work, but it makes them better at home too. And that creates loyalty.
Yes, I love that. That's something that is a big writer down, because a lot of the schools that we work with don't necessarily have a standards of behavior in their policies and procedures. So having that, a very distinct part of the manual or the onboarding, coming back to it frequently, I absolutely love that. The other thing you made me think about, of the added benefit of really establishing that and practicing it, is your customer service skills with parents, your
Oh,
customer
yeah.
skills. So we didn't even talk about that yet, but do
Right.
you teach anything about kind of the
Oh, yes,
okay, so
we
talk.
do. So yes, and we actually have a course launching, I think, in 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure on the timeline, but it's all on communication strategies, and it's designed for teachers and leaders, but we have a whole section just on families. And so much of what we teach, though, it's the whole communication is made up of your tone, your body language, and of course the words you say. But the words that you say are only 7% of that whole equation. So you've got to, especially, I always say, if you have RBF, which we all know what that is, you know it by now. You know it by this point in life, and monitor yourself. And so
That's
it's
right.
teaching them, what is your pace? Like, if you're worked up and you're talking really fast and you're right in there, they're going to rise to this. So we do a lot with teachers of teaching them mirror neurons, which is a whole aspect of the brain, and just teaching them how they can regulate themselves when they're upset, or they have to have a conversation with a parent, to know when to get help from administration. What conversations do you need to draw them into, which is a huge aspect of compliance, but then teaching them how they can regulate and use active listening. And what we teach with that whole aspect is just listening. The key to all of it with parents, the like little magic sauce, is listening for the underlying feeling of what the parent's saying. So they're coming to you, they're upset, they have all these concerns, like all this stuff is happening. And it's, what are they communicating under that? Like, listen to their words, yes. But
Yes.
usually with parents, a lot of what comes down is guilt and fear. And they feel guilty for leaving their kids, and they're really fearful that they're not doing it right, that their kid's not going to be okay because they don't know. Or, I mean, sure, there's other things that happen, but if you can teach your staff, train them well on how to listen and have these effective conversations, not going overboard and oversharing all the things, because that happens, not diagnosing, that happens too. But putting up some guardrails for them so they know, here's what you can do. And whenever it falls outside of that, administration needs to step in and help.
Wow, Terry, this has just been so eye-opening. I wish that we could go past the power half hour, because I could go down 5 or 6 different lanes here. But I think
Yeah.
what we've been able to accomplish in the time together today is really talking about how professional development truly is an integral part of operations, not just looking at it as a professional development need to do, check the box, but really looking at how it impacts the longevity of an employee, the growth of the employee, the ways that it impacts the culture and the communication. There's so many benefits to this. I guess if we had to boil it down into a 1 or 2, 3 takeaways, what would you want your audience, our audience, to take away from this conversation?
Well, just understanding that with professional development, you really can change everything. You can change your teachers' lives, not just how they teach in a classroom, but maybe they're only with you for a few months or a year. What a legacy you can have if you can pour into them and make them better at who they are. And so that's an opportunity far beyond meeting accreditation requirements and state requirements. So you can improve their lives and you can improve the lives of the children in your classroom by giving them effective strategies, by people this is like a little toot for my horn here, but just by people who know, who have lived it and who know the science behind it. So it's really important that you prioritize it. Like I said before, you can't afford not to. And it's got to be more than checking a box, but that investment and that mindset shift of how you view training has to come from the leader. And then the other thing I would say nugget is just as a leader, there's a trust bank you have with your employees, and every single interaction you have, you're either making a deposit into or withdraw from that. So just really build, whether it's go read the book I suggested was Feedback Without Fear, courageous conversation, or no, crucial conversations. There's some great books and resources out there. If you don't use us, just somehow just make sure you armor yourself up with the right communication skills and strategies so that you can build that loyalty with them so they will want to meet your expectations. And then the third I would just say is lead yourself well. So again, it all starts with you as the leader. So when you can, I say leverage separate realities, but when you can look at whatever the situation is with the staff member that maybe you're frustrated with, or they're just not quite clicking and getting it, you have your whole background in life and where you're coming from, and they have theirs. And so being able to leverage, take off the director role and just look at where are they at as a person? What are these other things going on? Because there may be something that you're missing. And when you can really connect with them first before you ever start, it's just like we say with children, connect before correct. Same thing applies to adults. But when you can strengthen that connection and dig deep, some of these you can save, and I say that because I had several people actually, that's like, oh, this one's on their way out. And then when you change your mind about them, you pour into them and you admit some of the things you were wrong in, or maybe you had a little bias in, and you see it differently. It is the most rewarding legacy aspect of the job, I think, to watch someone shift and turn and become so passionate, and then they start training others in your company. So don't give up until you have to.
That's a great note to end on. And if they want to find out more about Impact Early Education, what's your website?
ImpactEarlyEd.com, because that's what we want to do, is impact early education. So
That's perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you, Dr. Terry. We're so glad to
sure.
add voice to this conversation, and we'll see you again on a future episode.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.